Secondly, let's talk about the climate crisis, because the U.S. has disproportionately contributed to the total amount of emissions that is causing a planetary climate crisis right now. But who is bearing the brunt of that? Disproportionately, it's actually not us. We help create the problem, but disproportionately, it's the global South. It's South Asia, it's Latin America that are going to be experiencing the floods, wildfires, and droughts in a disproportionate way, which ding, ding, ding has already started a migration crisis.
You're ding, ding, all right.
But people don't want to have that conversation. Then we have the issues of trade, which economically contribute, can have contributions to some of these conditions that add fuel to the fire. But people don't want to have that conversation. They want to say, what about the surge?
Because they want to talk about the truth.
Well, first of all, just gut check, stop. Okay. Anyone who's using the term surge around you consciously is trying to invoke a militaristic frame. And that's a problem, because this is not a surge. These are children, and they are not insurgents. And we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist idea, philosophy. The idea that if an other is coming in the population, that this is like an invasion of who we are.
Oh, good heavens. How in the world can someone come up... I'm sorry. How in the world can someone come up with surge being the root word for insurgent? This is not a surge, she said. These are children. They are not insurgents. What am I supposed to think? There are young women that find this person legitimate. They turn to her, they find her as a hero. And she can say something so ignorant that it's surge is the root word of insurgent. What am I supposed to think here? Ada Jet Noise on YouTube, Facebook, Parler, Rumble. I'm fascinated. How does that even work? Good heavens, the definition. I'm going to try to squeeze this in here. The definition of surge is if you look it up, dictionary or dictionary online, if you look it up, I wasn't necessarily ready to explain such stupidity, but if you look up the definition of surge, you will see that it is here, I'm going to pull it up for you. Pull it up for you online. The definition of surge is a sudden, powerful forward and upward movement, especially by a crowd or by a natural force, such as the waves of a tide. That is the basic definition of the word insurgent, or See, she's got me all messed up. That's the basic definition of the word surge: a sudden, powerful move forward. Um, especially by a crowd, natural force, wave or tide or what have you. Um, and that's basically what's happening at the border. All the people that were being held back. There was enough people that came, believe me, there was enough people that came during the Trump administration, and plenty that came during the Obama administration, plenty that came during the W administration. But a lot of them during the Trump administration were being held back. There was more efforts, even by Mexico, at their southern border to keep these people back in those South American countries. And also, you can see some of the people staged in Mexico. They weren't able to be moved. America was helping them hold those people back, and America was saying, "Do not come to the United States. We cannot handle you right now. Or if you want to, by all means, you can." Do it through the proper measures. All right, we need to know who you are, and we need to know if you can be here. If you're a criminal in your country. We don't need the criminals here. If you're fine, you're a hard worker, what you want is better for yourself, there are proper channels. Make yourself legal. Make yourself legal. No one is trying to keep anyone out of this country unless, of course, they're just kind of surging in, which is what's happening. As soon as Biden he said in the campaign, "Come on in." Now he's president. Now that he's president, they're surging forward. All of those people, particularly the unaccompanied minors, which is another thing. They're not. One of the things they kept hitting Trump on was that the children were being separated from their so-called parents, which technically should be the children were being separated from the adults at the border when they got here in the United States. This time, they're not doing that. The plan is you bring the children within 100 yards of the border crossing, border fence, border hole, whatever, and you release them within that 100 yards. You just tell the kids to walk straight to the fence, walk straight to the gate, and the kids cross the border, and then the adults do what they have to do. So technically, we can say, the Biden administration can say that they are not being separated from the adults when they cross. The United States is not separating the adults from the children. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole different story. But the surge is indeed happening. A large flux of people are coming from South American countries and surging into the United States. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is using the surge sound, because that's all I'm getting out of it, as the root word of insurgent, which insurgent just means rebel. Revolutionary. So, indeed, it is a surge. AOC, mija, Dios te bendiga, because you need it. And just when you think something more ridiculous can't come out of her mouth, she finds a way to top the last thing. The last thing, what was there, where she was insinuating that she was in danger during the Capitol breach, when in fact the building in her office that she stays in has nothing to do with the area that was breached. And then she said she was afraid of the Capitol Police because, I don't know, he was white and he was being rude. The best way she could describe the guy was that he was being loud and brash. So he was giving you specific orders as a police officer. Do this. Go over there. He didn't say. She said he didn't explain exactly where he needed. Why should he have to explain anything? He's giving you general orders. Take your behind and go over to the other building. And then she said she got to the other building. She was staying with another, representative or senator or what have you, and she stayed in their office, and that everything was all cool and calm and stuff, except for her. She said she was running around checking closet doors and under tables, and and I believe that she was doing that because I believe that she's like that high strung. She even said that Ayanna Pressley, all of them ended up in Ayanna Pressley's office, and they had food up in there. But she was still nervous. Just when you think that more stupid can't come out of that girl's mouth, AOC, stupid comes out of her mouth. This time, she just takes and just changes the definition of words. And what worries me is that her fans, because that's what they are, she's doing makeup tutorials and telling you about nonsense like Surge and Insurgent. Her fans are gonna fall for it. She's an unfortunate soul. Surge. This is not a insurgent. They're children. Don't let anybody use the word surge, because that's a military thing. Not. Good heavens. Insurgent as the root word of... Yesterday, Biden went to Pittsburgh. Ding dong. And he introduced the first part of the plan, the $2 trillion infrastructure plan. You tell me, you keep me updated for the next 8 years. I used 8. I'll bring that up later as to why I used 8. And tell me just how effective the $2 trillion was of infrastructure was in your town, state, what have you. Biden, he went to Pittsburgh and he stood in front of a small bunch of pandering, union members, and he gave them, hey man, you guys are hardworking, without you guys, we got nothing. Because unions, blah, 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 as if no one would work if a union didn't exist. I don't necessarily have anything against unions. I do have there's a lot of crooked union people in those unions that aren't necessarily doing what they should be doing for the workers, or what they've promised, or what unions were, or what unions in general promised, because it's so easy to manipulate unions at this point. But he gave him the whole spiel. He gave him the lunchbox Joe stuff. He gave the Scranton, Pennsylvania thing, blah, 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 blah. Look, $2 trillion is the proposal they have for infrastructure. And wait till you see some of the stuff that this thing includes. Because infrastructure should mean roads, bridges, airports, trains, what have you. But get this. This is not, granted, $2 trillion that they're proposing. They've already spent $1.9 trillion. And what was the one before that Trump put in place? The $1.9 trillion for the stimulus package was what Biden's administration is dealing with. And there was another $900 billion or what have you during the Trump administration. How much money unnecessary spending do we need to go through? But here's some of the pieces of the $2 trillion of the infrastructure deal that they're trying to roll out. An entire $80 billion will apparently be spent on the Acela corridor, the Amtrak system that runs from D.C. to Boston. There is nothing special about the Acela corridor except that it gets you from D.C. to Boston. This looks like any other train, any other Amtrak train. It goes faster than most, but it still runs the same rail. And it really just sounds like it's benefiting the people of D.C., the people that want to work in D.C. and don't want to live in D.C. Because, right, you just behind the White House, it's like you see the White House, and behind the White House, and drive, 2 minutes? And it's like, and we like to all use the word ghetto. But it's like low income, urban area, dense urban area that's not doing well. Literally behind the White House. And there's a lot of area like that. So there's not like all this beautiful land or all these incredibly wonderful things to do if you're not on the whole within the capital type thing. Maybe you're not involved in the Pentagon or anything like that. But there's not all these great places to live where there's great things to do. So they have this high-speed rail between, that'll take you from D.C. to Boston, and this opens up the opportunity for people to live in other areas, whether it be New York or what have you, Massachusetts, what have you. So they're putting $80 billion into this thing that's already doing the job. What's the $80 billion for? What are they going to make the stations look fancy? What are they going to repaint these trains? What's the deal? $80 billion. I hope it goes into future repairs, rainy day fund. Because this thing, it is a fairly fast train, specifically for this country. It's not like high speed rail in Europe, in Asia, which they seem to benefit from, or they seem to, I don't know, they seem to appreciate. Here in the United States, trust me, we do not appreciate. We do not want anything to do with. If there's a high-speed rail, you're going to get on it. You're going to pay way too much money. It's not as efficient as, flying. And you'll still be paying flying money. It's just not an appealing thing in the United States. I understand some of our leftist friends like the idea of high-speed rail. They're not going to use it. They'll be like, hey, look at me. I'm on here for the first time, second time. Where's my plane? So high-speed rail, not a thing. This DC, $80 billion going from Boston to DC seems a little isolated, right? Not exactly the infrastructure thing that when we think infrastructure, money towards infrastructure, it's not exactly what we're thinking. Really isolated. Currently, only 2% of the vehicles on America's roads are electric. Under Biden's plan, $174 billion with the will go into subsidizing electrical vehicles and purchase and building 500,000 electric charging stations. At that point, why don't you just take the $174 billion and just build more charging stations? Why subsidize electric vehicles? If you build enough charging stations and put the right commercials on, people will buy the electric cars. People do like the Tesla. it's all in what people want to buy. But what this $174 billion does towards this is more along the lines of jabbing you into going electric or not going at all. So there's no such thing as we're going to subsidize electric cars and build a 500,000 electrical charging stations. It's more along the lines of we will build some charging stations, and we will jab you into buying electric or riding the bus, kind of thing. And maybe the bus will be electric. Who knows? $213 billion would renovate and retrofit more than 2 million homes and housing units. It will also go towards building and retrofitting 500,000 homes for low and middle income earners. I got to tell you, none of that sounds like it's going to necessarily help anyone. It really doesn't. The low income earners, retrofitting them with easy to manipulate from the outside world energy. Does that mean it just, when they want the energy on and off in your area, that they can do that? Because it sounds like not just it's supposedly safer stuff, but it sounds just like the government will have more control over the energy you use in your homes. $180 billion will be spent on climate science and eliminating racial, gender inequities in research and development and STEM. Climate science and eliminating racial and gender inequities in the infrastructure plan. You take that one where you need to go. Another $111 million would go to the water infrastructure, including replacing all lead pipes and services lines in the country. Which sounds appealing, but I don't think you're going to get it done for $111 million. I don't think you're going to scratch the surface with $111 million. Out of the $2 trillion plan, $111 million to replace piping, what? In, I don't know, Dayton, Ohio? $100 billion would go to building new public schools and upgrading existing buildings. Hey, have you seen some of these schools? There's these massive cathedrals, these small cities, and the kids aren't getting any smarter, and the education is getting far, far worse. We're going to build these more incredibly huge, massive buildings to teach kids critical race theory, so to teach black kids that they're never going to be good enough unless white people they're helped by white people, and white people are all racist. That's what's being taught in the schools. So we need new, wonderful, huge buildings to teach those type of things. They're even saying math is racist, that facts should not matter. And if you get something wrong, it may be because you're black, but it doesn't matter. So yes, math, it's got down to math. Even math is racist. Some other details include $100 billion for rural internet, $100 billion for workforce development, and $18 billion for VA hospitals. Blah blah blah. That is the infrastructure plan, my friends, and they have worked LGBTQ and black they've worked reparations pretty much into it as well. Reparations, soft. There's soft mentions of reparations in that plan. So that is what Biden spent his time talking about. And when I mentioned the 8 years earlier, let me know in 8 years what the impact that this infrastructure, $2 trillion of infrastructure. Let me know the impact that it's made in your city, in town, state, what have you, for 8 years. Because Biden said that the plan is a 15-year plan, and the coverage, this money is going to cover 8 of the. What's happening to the other 7 years? So this money's covering 8 of a 15-year plan. 8 years of a 15-year plan. There's 7 years that he's saying are just, what is it, just going to like disappear into the ether? What is happening? I think basically what he's saying is that they're going to have to come back for more money to cover this plan, on top of the other plans that they're going to come up with. Maybe not necessarily infrastructure plans, but I'm sure there will be other things. There'll be a climate change plan, even though climate change is supposedly covered. Some of it's covered in this thing. It's covered in the last plan. But there's going to be a climate change plan. So spend. I wasn't happy with Trump spending. Why would I be happy with Biden spending? Wasting our time, wasting our resources, wasting our money. Nothing is being invested into this country except spend. Data suggests vaccinated people don't carry COVID-19. Vaccinated people don't carry COVID-19? That would be the point of the vaccine. You know what that means? It means vaccinated people do not need to wear masks. I'll fill you in. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky, appearing on an interview with Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, said, quote, "Our data from the CDC today suggests that the vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that's not just in the clinical trials, but it's in the real world." I'm going to say that again. The CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, quote, "Our data from the CDC today suggests that the vaccinated people do not carry the virus, they don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, it's in the real world." On Monday, the CDC released a study that found the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were 90% effective after 2 doses and were 95% effective in preventing COVID-19. This study looked at the nearly 4,000 frontline workers, some of whom were vaccinated and some of whom were not, who were tested weekly for COVID-19 between December and March. Among those who had been vaccinated, only 3 individuals developed COVID-19 infections, while there were 161 positive COVID-19 cases among those who did not receive the vaccine. Why are we wearing the mask? Her point is that I'm sure she's trying to sell the vaccine. She's trying to push the vaccine. The problem is that someone like Biden and even her are telling you to keep the freaking mask on. Why? If you got the vaccine, why do you have to wear the mask? If you are not carrying the virus, if you cannot carry the virus and you cannot catch the virus, there's no reason to wear the mask. Oh, we're helping the others. Other people haven't got, you don't know if they've got the most of the people that you'll probably run into have either had it or are not in danger of it, are not in serious danger if they did get it. And if you've already had it, you are experiencing the same thing with the vaccine. Chances are you will not get it again, and that you're not asymptomatic. That you can't share it. So why the face diaper? The face diaper should be a thing of the past. Right now, there's to the point, I just heard another story of people, there's families that are going, and this is in Texas. And Texas dropped the mask mandate. So the families are going out, the adults are not wearing the mask, but the kids won't take the mask off because they're afraid. They're so used to wearing it in school. It's just a thing now. That means they've gotten to the point to where they're waiting for someone to say it's okay to take off the mask. But not their parents, because they don't trust their parents. No. They have to wait for some sort of government official. You're like 11 or 12 years old. You need someone on TV to tell you you can take the mask off, right? But it also sets up that in the future, they're like, oh, another strain of something. Not even COVID. Not even this Wuhan flu. Something is going to come along and they're going to go, we need you to put the mask on again. And people are just going to, right on their face. It worked last time. No, it didn't. It didn't work. The mask did not work. The massive population wearing masks, it did not work. It wasn't going to get the job done. And I'm a firm believer, and we needed to let it right out. And we needed to be just as cautious as we were at any other time. You've done it for your entire life. Oh, you're sick. Stay away from me. You've always taken care of yourself. And then this troll with a graph that tells you to wear a mask. This troll in his scarf-wearing toady convinced the entire country that it's a good idea to wear the mask. And to this day, even with the vaccine that they tout as fantastico, they're still telling you to wear the mask. No sense at all. No sense at all. And I understand now that a lot of people are just like, I don't want to hear it. I'm just going to wear the mask, with or without the vaccine. They're not going to argue. They're just going to wait for someone to say it's okay to take the mask off. The vaccine. If you get the vaccine told you, take the mask off. And again, she's pushing the vaccine on this. But what we can gather from it is you do not have to wear the mask. Why are they still insisting on the face diaper? Pentagon inclusion officer who compared Trump to Hitler reassigned. Richard Torres Estrada, hired by Pentagon to be diversity inclusion officer, which is he's the guy that makes sure that we have enough gay people, enough LGBTQ, what have yous, or transgender, and this guy is the guy that is was his job was going to be, we make sure we have all those those bases covered in our military, because that's what's important, is those particular things. Research by Fox News, Tucker Carlson, showed Torres Estrada had promoted controversial messages on Facebook, including a post showing an attack on police, crude BLM propaganda. Another post was a picture of Donald Trump holding a Bible in front of the church, and next to that picture was a picture of Adolf Hitler. This is a guy that was going to be in charge of the military fairness, if you will, inclusion. This guy, we're supposed to trust the guy that is saying that Trump and anyone that follows Trump is, a madman and his minions. That Trump is Hitler, and that everyone else that follows Trump or what have you is some sort of Nazi or something along that lines, which is exactly what I want in the Pentagon, right? Hillary's back. And she's calling us names once again. In fact, she called us shameless gun worshippers. In a recent interview, Hillary said,
democracy is the balancing of interests and rights. And unfortunately, at this time, the gun worshippers have a huge advantage because of the filibuster. And because of their shameless exploitation of people's unwarranted fears.
So she's obviously talking about people that want to hold on to their guns, right? You bought a gun for certain reasons, whether it be hunting or defending yourself or planning to defend your family or defend your country in general. And that's basically, she's saying that more gun laws need to be put on something that on the Second Amendment. And any gun law that is made after the Second Amendment was put in place is a violation of our constitutional rights, right? So that's why it's important to diminish, undersell, whatever it is, the Constitution, because indeed, as long as the Second Amendment exists, people can fight back if they are cornered or against the wall. And Hillary's trying to push more, more sensible gun laws. She carried on.
The opportunist on the other side, like Cruz and his ilk. They know better, and they are in a position of trying to keep people from people riled up and scared that sensible gun legislation like we had in the 90s for 10 years will somehow undermine their rights.
The 10 years, the gun laws that were lifted by W, because the gun laws, there were bans on certain semi-automatic weapons, and definitely on automatic weapons. Those gun laws that were put in place by her husband, Bubba, Billy I'm not going to go there. But those things didn't work. The numbers show you that none of those things worked. And all it was doing was denying the law-abiding citizens the opportunity to get the guns that they wanted. Because the killings, the murders and stuff like that, the numbers just didn't change. And it had nothing to do, it had, in fact, they found alternatives. To this day, knife murders are outpacing gun murders in the United States. Knife murders, hammers, bare hand murders are outpacing gun murders. So, again, it's not the gun that's killing people. And you sound silly when you say that, because you can take a gun and put it on your dining room table, and if you never touch it, it'll get up in the middle of the night and shoot you in the face. No, it's never going to do anything. You can buy a gun, put it in your closet, forget about it. It'll be in there for years. Not one time will that gun come out and chase you around the house. So, I'm telling you. She had a little bit more to say.
Well, what about the rights of all of the rest of us? The rights of us to go to work, go shopping, go on dates on to the movies and theater, go to school, for heaven's sake. What about the rest of us?
That is what Hillary had to say about guns. More left-wing propaganda. The Second Amendment is there. The Second Amendment is there. And despite the horrific hits that the First Amendment has taken, the Second Amendment is the last straw. If these people are not careful, the Second Amendment will surface for its true purpose. So that's why they can't just say we're coming for your guns. They have to convince the later generations, the newer generations, they have to convince them that guns are not necessary or that guns are dangerous. That Second Amendment. When the First Amendment is gone, the Second Amendment comes into play. A woman told the police she had not heard from her 66-year-old sister since October 2020. The sister, Evelyn Sakish, lived in Queens, New York, and has been described by her sister as a heavy hoarder. Evelyn's sister had recently come to New York to find her. While in town, she also hired a cleaning crew to clear out the woman's house in College Point on 123rd, Street to see if she was inside. That's what the cops said. The cleaners discovered Sakish's mummified body around 4:15 p.m. on Tuesday under a massive pile of garbage in the kitchen. No criminality was suspected in her death. Wow, that was tough find. Joshua Elias, I'm sorry to the family for butchering that last name. Eliasis was found passed out on the bathroom floor by his twin brother on March 22nd after an allegedly using a shoelace to attempt the blackout challenge, a popular social media trend that involves choking oneself until loss of consciousness. The boy was reportedly rushed to the hospital but the doctors have since told the family that his brain is dead and he will not recover. He is a fighter. I can see him fighting. I'm praying for him every day, Joshua's father, Heliasis Ziria. Oh boy, Ziria. They're obviously not Western Western world people. But so my apologies for butchering these names. But his father said it's just heartbreaking to see him laying on the bed. Um, they told me that the bad news. They told me the bad news that he's not going to survive. He's not going to make it. I was begging them on the floor, pleading to see if they can give me some time, not to give up on him. If I just give up on him, I feel like I am just walking away from my son. My prayers go out to that family. Indeed, I understand. Just I hope the hospital just a little more time. I understand. There will be you'll have to make a decision soon, and he's young enough to where a miracle can happen, but there's going to be that hang on moment. If he's not there, then Dad, you're gonna have to let go. I think Dad knows that. It's just you got to give him a little bit of chance to get with God and see what God's plan is on that. Because it might not be that his son's going to come back on that, but there could be a lesson learned, and maybe he could be an advocate for getting rid of this online stupidity that our kids are sharing with themselves. Because right now, the parent is coming at so many gigabytes per second down the internet. It's tough to watch some of the heinousness, some of the awful, just ridiculous actions happening on the internet, and they are kids. So the next cool thing is always going to be the next dangerous thing. The University of Winchester, located in South England, erected a life-size bronze statue of guess who? Of Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is indeed in bronze form in Winchester, in the college in Winchester, England, which is another ridiculous moment. You have to excuse me here. Another ridiculous moment in our time. And not everyone is thrilled about that. I'm trying to get my lights back on up here. The students at the university, that was a little faux pas on my part. In a press release, the school officials said that the statue represents the school's ongoing commitment to sustainability and social justice, and its commitment to combat the climate and ecological emergency. Yes, that's what it all is. Although the students themselves thought otherwise, the statue sparked a backlash among students who believe university funds should have been more wisely spent. Can you imagine that? According to the BBC, the statue costs £24,000, which is the equivalent of $33,000 here in the United States. Megan Ball, president of the Winchester Student Union, said that the Winchester students could not support the statue and called the university officials to replace the money that they spent on it. Quote, we are in a COVID year. Lots of students have really had access to campus, hadn't had access to campus. Lots of them are trying to study online and are in dire need of support. That's what Ms. Ball said. We are calling on the university to match the statue cost by committing £23,760 which will put you around $33,000 in U.S. dollars, and additional funding to student support services across campus. We urge them to publicly face the critical issues which students are highlighting in the provide trends. Well, first of all, I agree with the kids. By all means, it's a statue of Greta Thunberg. All right. Thunberg. They're telling me that the proper pronunciation is Thunberg. So I'll call her that because I really don't care. Ultimately, the student union called the statue a vanity project. And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I want you to know how people have invested in Greta Thunberg. And just how incredibly ridiculous it is to invest in someone that has been, I don't think is she 18 yet? She has the major investment was when she was around 16 years old, because they were able to use her as a tool to wave in front of the Trump administration, right? Like when she sailed over here because she didn't want to use carbon emissions, so she sailed on this incredibly expensive sailboat. God knows how many carbon emissions it went into making that ridiculously huge sailboat that got her across the ocean. And even the clothes that they had her wearing on, these God knows what went into making those things, because those things were incredibly expensive. Sailing jacket and pants and what have you. The crew that had to sail that ship, not only did it, I'm sure, the carbon emissions to get that crew together, to get them on that ship, to get her across the United States, they had to fly back. And God knows how many flights. They had to fly back, and they had to fly back and forth to get that ship going back. It was just to get that little girl over here and say, "How dare you?" And this little girl, who already has a form of autism, has been filled with nothing but awful. Imagine you waking up and telling your kids only awful things every single day. That doesn't matter which way you turn, you tell your kid that it doesn't matter which way she turns, just things are just going to be bad. She's filled with these terrible, terrible things. People filling her head, strangers, fake scientists, wannabe, activists, filling her head every single day with these awful things. This is abuse. Abuse. And somehow she's the face of things she doesn't understand. And here's proof of that. Indian politicians and activists on Monday condemned the arrest of 22-year-old Disha Ravi, a climate campaigner and leader of the Indian arm of the Greta Thunberg's climate crisis-related Fridays for Future movement. Riva is accused of sedition for helping edit an online document that Thunberg had promoted in support of farmers protesting in the country. Thunberg had shared this, there was some conditions that the Indian government was putting together. And anyway, these farmers were protesting because they were concerned that it was going to affect their livelihoods. So, but anyway, I digress. Thunberg had shared on Twitter a toolkit or an action plan of misinformation and disaffection against the lawfully enacted government, police said. The toolkit, excuse me, the toolkit itself listed ways to help Indian farmers who have been protesting agricultural reforms here that fear will ruin their livelihoods. Police arrested Ravi as part of an investigation into how a group of farmers stormed the historic Red Fort on the occasion of India's Republic Day last month. When asked about Disha Ravi's detention, Thunberg said she had no comment. She had no comment, calling me surprised. The uninformed, very privileged girl is told that she's special for speaking about climate change. Has nothing to say about followers actually getting their hands dirty. Thunberg is sticking her nose in India's business. And as she finds a way to rile up someone that obviously loves her and respects what she stands for, she just, hey, look, part of the it's part of the deal. You're gonna go down. I got nothing to say. So she's sticking her nose in India's business, as if she knows what's going on in India, and it's the same thing. The carbon emissions that or I should say, the carbon plan, the ecological plans that these people have in mind goes well beyond ridiculous, right? And that she's saying that she's suffering, and that that things are hard for her. And have you seen the memes where the kids are like mining for garbage in Africa? And next there is a picture of Greta Thunberg sitting on a high-speed rail eating whatever vegan thing that she eats. And the other kids are just covered in just garbage goo. And that she's saying she has it hard. There's kids being, again, dragged by coyotes, human traffickers. They're sex slaves. And I'm supposed to be happy that a university in England erected a statue. And again, I agreed with the students that, hey, this is a vanity project, man. Although you're giving them your money, so who's the dink here? I agree with the students. The statue shouldn't be up, especially if some child who has no real vision of the world, and the vision that she does have is doom. And let's just say that some magical wand was waved over the entire planet and gave her most of what she wanted. It wouldn't be enough, because she doesn't know anything else. Her head has been filled with doom, and she's giving that doom to your children. She's sharing that doom. It's child abuse what they're putting her through. And it's child abuse for anyone that follows her. And it's ridiculous for a university to erect a statue of Greta Thunberg. Speaking of ridiculous in schools, I just passed by a story where there's schools in Chicago that want to name their schools after their buildings after the Obamas. It's a couple of buildings. I guess Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. They'll have schools. They want schools named after them. Although some of the Latino community is saying that they were oppressors too. So they don't want to hear it. And quite frankly, by the definition of today's definition of oppressors, indeed, the Obama administration was an oppressive administration. Now you can argue whether, how it is politically, but at the border, remember, one of Obama's brands is the deporter in chief. Those immigrants, those south of the border immigrants, they haven't forgotten who you are, Brock. They have not forgotten who you are. They do not care for you in the least. So, that was rather spirited. That's rather spirited. What I do, an hour there? But anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging with me this morning. Looks like I will be here tomorrow on Good Friday. I appreciate that. I really do. Again, A to Jet Noise, Rumble, and Facebook, Parler, YouTube. If nothing else, Biden is keeping the wheels turning for anyone that's conservative and or libertarian. We see it all, and I'm noticing more and more our friends on the left, the ones that voted for him, the ones that wanted Trump out so bad, they're not saying a whole lot. Proof in point is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who decided that she wanted to try to say something and made herself look like an idiot. And our friends are watching these things happen, and they have to just eat it. This awful spending, this insistence upon masks, the border just dumpster fire, because I don't want to call it a crisis anymore. We're not supposed to call it crisis, but the border dumpster fire. Our friends are seeing those things, and they're staying incredibly quiet. We're going to need answers from them eventually. We need to know what their next move is going to be, because if it is more of the same, that is the final nail in the coffin. If they see more of the same, if they insist on more of the same, the final nail is in the coffin. I will be here tomorrow doing my thing. We're going into the Easter weekend. God bless all of you. And so tomorrow, Good Friday, we will be here and going over more of the madness that we call the world today. Until then, big hug. Be good. Be still. Enjoy your life.